Welcome to another edition of Your Daily Five. I'm your co-host, Johnny Scan, John Colucci. With me today, Professor Bruce Frazier. Happy New Year, Professor.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everybody. And this is a great way to start the year. Thank you, John. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. Very interesting scan for today. Let's take a look at a little retrospective on 2022. Stocks that have done 200% or better. Double or better. What do you say, Professor? Interesting subject?
Absolutely. And I'd love to go back and look at prior big winners and really study them. So this is just a great scanning tool for being able to identify some names that maybe we would not have put eyeballs on during the year.
It's so important to know what moved, why they moved, and how to find them. So that's a little bit about what the engine can do today, is how do we use the scan engine to find and extract information to better help us for the future. So here we have very basic scan, very, very wide scan. Any stock in the U.S. closes over $5 per share 1 day ago, because we're going to roll back 1 day because we're 1 trading day ahead already on January 3rd. 253, approximate number of days in a trading year. The closing value greater than 200. So it's the percent close, 253 periods is greater than 200. We're going to rank these by the raw data, the 253% change. And just to show you, there's a couple of different ways we could do things. We're going to use yesterday's percent change. 1 day ago, yesterday, same thing. Engine gives you some choices there. You ready to see what the results are, Professor?
Let's have a look.
So out of potentially thousands of stocks, 20 stocks doubled through the year-end 2022. It was a very rough year for stocks. S&P down almost 20%, and NASDAQ even worse. What do we have here? 20 stocks, and look at the aggregation of industries and sectors in which we find these opportunities. By far the most, energy. Top 3, oil, equipment, and services. Marine transportation following closely on. Look at our capitalization. Mostly smaller caps, couple of mids, not a single large cap in the group. What are your thoughts there, Professor?
Well, the emphasis of the oil industry here is really evident in that the marine transport companies, for the most part, were transporting energy, in addition to the oil equipment names and the coal name. So this is very interesting. And also the fact that there's only 20 names in the list is really, I think, significant to the weakness of 2022 and what a poor year it was for the typical stock.
Very, very interesting. When we have the results window up, it gives us such a clue into the depth and breadth of our search results. And of course, our last column to the right is always our scan sort column. If it ran, doesn't always run, but if you don't see it here, it didn't run. So look at the top stock did over 1,500% in 2022, and our lowest stock, Oxford Square Capital, 200%, just over 200.128. So certainly it appears as though we did get the results that we want, and they are sorted in the proper order. Should we take a look at a chart, Professor?
Yeah, and let me make a point about Scooter. Scooter is a great tool to identify momentum, and we see here that these are, for the most part, except for one, are all in the 90s. And when you have a strong upward trend, whether it's early, middle, or late in that trend, typically it's going to have a very high Scooter rank, and that Scooter rank can persist pretty much throughout the trend. So Scooter is a very important indication of a stock's momentum characteristics, and I think that the 90 rankings here are very telling.
Absolutely. We have a couple that don't have scooter ranks, and that typically is because they're newer issues. They haven't built up the data set for the rank, or they just haven't had the opportunity in the engine to sort that data. Also, we only have one really aberrational, and that's BP Prudhoe Bay Royalty Trust, and that's worth checking out. Why do we have an aberrational scooter value on our return list? So that's all the important things that you could get just from the grid, the results grid. Ready to look at a chart, Professor?
Let's have a look.
All right. So our first chart here is 9 Energy Services. Been around for a while. Certainly the chart goes back to 21, hovering in the $3-4 area early 22. Something big happened in March. How climactic does that look? Then hovering along the 50 up and really parabolic in Q3 of last year. We see the relative strength to the VTI, Vanguard Total Stock Index. Very, very important measure of performance. You can use an index such as the S&P 500 or the Qs, but we often use the VTI because it's a total stock market index. Your thoughts here, Professor?
Very large cause was built prior to the markup phase, which occurred in the fourth quarter. And you can even see there in March that there was a big sign of strength thrust before it pulled back for a very long time, March to September, and put in the final higher lows that preceded the markup phase. So most of the action that occurred in this stock really occurred in the fourth quarter of the year, but it really told us, and if you look at a weekly chart going back further, that this cause was formed all the way back to the COVID lows of 2020. Really interesting case study.
Fantastic. Well, with any luck, they'll start to actually have positive cash flow, but big drop today. Very interesting give back after a huge run. 230 before the last point of support off the 200 period average, and then just rocketed up. That would have been a nice one to catch there. Take a look at our next stock here after we look at the very, very important aspect in stock research. This is from the Wyckoff Market Report, something that I do weekly. And one of the things we do as part of the top-down approach, we look at the performance of industry groups, and what do you know? Oil, Equipment, and Services Index, top of the line there, green numbers all the way across the performance grid. Very, very important metric to look at how industries are performing out there. Your thoughts, Professor?
Well, and stocks and groups show stocks that are birds of a feather, and they run together for the most part. And once you start to get outperformance in any one of these groups, it tends to persist and persist for a long time. So you can move up the list, and every week you could see how these groups that are being favored are inching their way up the industry group list, and will continue to just persist like that for months and months and months in many cases.
Very interesting. We'll show that chart real quickly. You can see here almost a reverse head and shoulders situation, but relative strength keeping up there. And look at the performance over this period relative to the VTI, 86.56% outperformance to the total stock market index. Very interesting stuff there, wouldn't you say, Professor?
And the only thing I would really point to here, beautiful higher lows throughout this upward trend, and it's consolidating in a high tight range in the fourth quarter, November, December. We'll watch it closely to see whether or not it can resolve itself to new highs, and also that the relative strength continues to make new highs and is flirting with the prior highs that it made earlier in the year.
Very interesting. Let's take a look at our next chart. TUSK, Mammoth Energy Services, an unfamiliar name to me, but again, big drop today. Still have a nice upward movement on the relative strength. the 50s above the 200. Nice move up there. But interacted with that 836 prior momentum move up, climactic in nature, secondary test way high there. Very interesting potential causation forming here. Your thoughts, Professor?
Beautiful causal structure formed 2022 back to 21 and had a nice sign of strength into August, pulled back one last time into September, October before marking up. And I would say to watch the stock for potential reaccumulation structure that might be forming. Could take quite a while to form, but there is a bigger structure that goes back to the COVID lows.
Big move, not incredible volume yet, 518 on the day at the time this chart was pulled, and your EMA 10-period average of volume 404. So significant, but not multiples, which is interesting there. So something's going on. Be very interesting to watch that one. Our next one is from the marine transport industrials area, Ardmore Shipping. Shipping's been an interesting sector. There's been some really high dividend performers there, and maybe things are evening out a little bit, 7 PE here, but look at the move up on the year, 379 all the way up to the 13-14 range. Big winner there. All signs look good. A little bit of pullback here, maybe find support at 13.5 area. Your thoughts here, Professor?
This is oil and gas transport. You can see going back to 2021, 2022, that a cause was forming. It resolved itself out of the cause. It's a beautiful structure. Look at how it really tightens up as you get into the end of 21. And that is a sign of absorption of the shares by strong hands. Beautiful uptrend follows. Really a nice case study.
Our next one, another marine transport, Scorpio tankers. Look at the beautiful up channel that formed there, just moving up off support back into the channel. A little bit of overbought at 57.71, but all things are looking pretty solid here. Your thoughts, Professor?
Again, a reaccumulation type structure occurred back to 2021, and there's actually a much bigger structure that goes back to as far as 2018. Now it's in an uptrend. Watch for reaccumulations. It could very well be that these energy type transport companies could continue to have continued higher prices, but after the pauses of reaccumulations and so on. So again, trends tend to beget future trends. And so we want to watch for strong trends with interruptions for the potential for future trends.
Absolutely. And our last stock for today is Hallador Energy. Coal. Very interesting to see coal here. Big drop today, but look at the movement from the mid-2s all the way up to almost 12 to finish the year. Very interesting. Back to the 50. Getting a little bit of support around the 50. Relative strength looking good. OBV way up high, and Scooter at 96. Very credible there. Your thoughts here, Professor?
Epic uptrend since 2020. And this is a good example of how a trend can beget a future trend, because we can see if we go back to July of 2021, that's a reaccumulation structure that stretches all the way into the first quarter of 22. And that is a reaccumulation that sets up the conditions, a pause for another move up. And so, again, always be studying trends for the potential for pauses that could set up the conditions for another run later on.
That's all we have time for today, folks. Check out our friends over at Wyckoff Analytics, and that's another edition of Your Daily 5.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.